Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Lurie with the Hard Money Co. And today we are doing a webinar series, a free webinar series on a success story for the BRRRR strategy. We have live with us today two of our borrowers who have successfully completed a full BRRRR. They have used hard money. They have executed on the strategy. They have received a check back for $20,000 to go do their next deal with, and have done all of that in a very short period of time. And we're going to do a case study, deep dive into this. Today is a great interactive day. I've got Londi and Steve with us live in studio here. We will also be doing a follow-up right after this of a live podcast where we'll be doing questions and answers. For the ones that we didn't get to during this brief 1-hour free webinar, we will be diving deep into those questions. So bring your questions. There's no such thing as free education, but this is free education. This is 2 hours of your day. Spend an hour, spend 5 minutes, spend 2 hours with us. I'm very confident after you see the success that's happened here, you're going to not only get motivated to get out of your butts and get moving, but you're also going to have some great educational abilities to execute on your own BRRRR strategy. And we're really excited to dig into that. So free webinar series. I always jump into this briefly when I get started. When I invested in real estate starting in 2003, there was no webinar series. There weren't mentors and there wasn't the school. There was only the school of hard knocks, going out on the streets and learning how to be a real estate investor. I started in 2003 and I really focused on fix and flips and buying and selling deals. At the Hard Money Co., we fund your dreams, your repairs, your rentals. We are a finance company that focuses on 1 to 4 family real estate assets. We're going to dig in. My goal is to obviously create a transparency. We want to operate with urgency, diligence, and we want to make sure that we are, just like you, operating with great hustle. So a little bit about myself. I started in 2003 with zero. For those of you in the audience, how many of us have zero right now? If you can just put a yes or no in the chat room. How many people have under 10 units? Let's see where we got. And that's how many people have got over 10 units. How many people have wholesaled? How many people are fixing and flipping? Type in your information. Let's get a little chat moving here. I started in 2003 with zero. I didn't have a single piece of real estate. I had zero assets. I was essentially broke. I had no money. But I had one goal. I wanted to become wealthy. I wanted to have generational wealth for cash flow as well as for myself. And I knew I had all that I have, which was my hustle. I knew that if I gave myself 100% or more, I could be successful in the game called real estate, because anybody can be successful in real estate. It doesn't have any barriers to entry, and it does have the ability for you to start with zero and be a multimillionaire quickly. I hope everyone heard that. We can all become multimillionaires in real estate with zero background in the game. We just have to get started, and we have to be successful in what we're doing. So, as I said, I was focused on my path of wealth was to really create generational wealth, but also cash flow that allowed to sustain a life I wanted to live. I was focused on doing so, and I had only one way to do it, which was through OPM. Everyone know what OPM is? Other people's money. I still today, in all of our developments that we do, we raise OPM. We still syndicate. If I'm building a $50 million building, I'm raising $11 to $15 million of OPM. Other people's money, we continue to do so. If we're doing a single family flip, we use OPM. If we're doing a duplex, OPM. If we're doing a 200 unit ground up development, we use OPM. Other people's money is a great way to power and leverage up, and it's a really powerful tool. We're excited to dig into that. So we are doing a live podcast recording directly after this. You can find it on The Hard Truths with Scott Lurie, which will be featuring Steve and Londi. We're going to be digging into Steve and Londi's story. I have had the fortune, which we'll discuss a little bit about, meeting Londi when she used to sell automobiles. I was a customer. Londi and I found each other through her previous career, which was selling cars, and Londi was always asking questions about real estate, always wanted to get involved in real estate, and she successfully has done so. So I don't know what you're doing every day, if you're selling cars or selling something else, or if you're working for someone else. but his opportunity to get involved in real estate. There's a very powerful message here. I hope you have some thought-provoking questions. We want to answer them, and I hope, more important than that, your motivation upon leaving this webinar is very high. So, presentation overview. We're going to do an introduction. Meet Shalonda and meet Steve. We're going to talk about the BRRRR strategy, and then we're going to, how do you go from 0 to 60 units starting today, right? We're going to take action. So this is what you're going to get today. We hope you enjoy the content and get started. So borrower case study. I don't know if you can see on the screen yet, but you've got Londi and you've got Steve. I call her Londi. She's Shalonda. Shalonda and Steve are a Milwaukee-based couple who transitioned from traditional careers. They were doing other stuff into real estate, right? They are focused on real estate. They continue to do real estate. They are doing other deals right now. They are active. They are competent. They communicate well. And they are great partners of the Hard Money Co., but also of themselves and how they continue to deliver what their goals are and achieve those results. Can you see them? Come into the screen for a minute. So Steve and Londi. So Steve and Londi began their real estate career when Londi bought her condemned childhood home. So Londi bought her first home. So Londi, talk us a little bit about that. The house that you lived in, you bought for how much and from who?
So I bought the house that I lived in for $60,000 from my old landlord.
Okay.
And it was like directly after 2 years after my bankruptcy.
So Londi had some financial challenges. Londi has righted her ship. She's solved it. She's bought another home. She's obviously working towards continuing to build the portfolio. Steve, welcome. Thanks for being here. Tell us a little bit about your background. You did what before real estate, and tell us how you obtained your skills to fix these properties.
So before we got into the real estate thing, during COVID, I was driving truck for a while. But before that, I used to be a drywaller. I used to skip kindergarten and wash out 5-gallon buckets for 25 cents a piece for my dad. And when I got all those done, I got to wash his tools and then start spotting screws for a penny a piece. So that's where the introduction, I guess, into the construction trade came.
Sure.
And then I just started to from the drywall when stuff wasn't framed up and ready. My dad, he wouldn't wait for a contractor to get there. He'd be like, no, let's just do it, because he was a go-getter. And same with the electricity or the electric, the plumbing or whatever, instead of waiting for the contractor to come back because he had guys on the job. So we just did it and he took care of it. So I started to learn from them. And I was always curious and asking questions on like how to do things. And when I didn't have or wasn't able to do it, I was always on a job site to be able to have somebody show me or whatever when I was confused with it, or be able to call.
Excellent.
And then I don't know, when I turned 40, I was just like, you know what, I didn't want to be in it anymore. I actually wanted to go to work clean and come home clean. So I went and got myself my CDL and went out on the road. And then during the pandemic, we were just sitting there one day and I was sitting in my truck and she goes, how much would it cost for you to leave the house for one night? And I was like, $500. We had fixed up her, the house that she had, and she was just like, I'm going to put it on Airbnb. I was like, okay, fine. By the time I got back from Chicago, it was already booked up for like 4 days or something like that. $2,000. And I'm just like, are you serious? And it just took off from there. So that's how we got it.
That's a great introductory story. And as you guys have any questions about Steve or Londi's background, or how they took how he went from becoming a CDL to now pivoting into real estate, feel free to ask those questions, because these are all real questions. These are real folks here investing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So as a partnership that you guys have, Londi goes out, because I know she's out there every day. I hear from Londi, she's searching for deals, finding deals, and you're spending your days managing and fixing up the deals along with Londi, because I know she is a busybody and wants to be in everyone's business too. So she's making sure that the property's getting fixed, but she's also searching and scouring deals. And so that's the dynamic that works for you guys right now. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. And so now we're expanding, right? So we started with that original property. We talked about a BRRRR for a minute, excuse me, a short-term rental. So you guys are also, we're going to dig into the house on Val Phillips, the one that we're talking about, which is the BRRRR strategy.
Yep.
And so we are basically playing Monopoly on your own block. Is that a true statement? We're trying to buy the entire block.
It's our third house on that block, so.
So we own 3 of how many?
Oh, the police station's there, so.
Yeah, so we got 3 of 10 houses already. We're like boardwalk. I just started playing that Go. My kid taught me Go Monopoly. But okay, so I
hope you land on the steps.
Yes, that's right. Landing on your
because it's right on the same block.
That's right. Oh, but if you land on your steps, they're paying you $500 a night.
Exactly.
All right. So very good. So let's dig into a little bit about this property that we're talking about. And we're going to talk about the hard money success story. So OPM, people get really lost in OPM. And I go back to my original story. I started with nothing and built up an over $300 million portfolio. And one of my claim to fame, one of them, which is probably my only one, is that I did all of this with OPM, right? Other people's money. I was always using other people's money. Hey, Mr. Investor, I will pay you a handsome return in exchange for you giving me some money so that I can go do my business plan. And I always was able to make that happen. In this scenario, we're talking about Londi and Steve buying a property. They used a loan from the Hard Money Co. They were swift and diligent with their repairs, which is great. The best thing we hear from our investors that are borrowing money from us is the ones that are saying, can I get a repair draw? Can I get a repair draw? Can I get a repair draw? Because that means they're doing something. Right. We have some investors that take out money to do repairs and then forget to do the draws because they forget to do things. So we hear that from you, and then we refinance and do a cash out refinance, right? So does everyone understand how that works in a total circus and circle of life? We start with the distressed asset, we finish with a finished asset that we end up with long-term debt on, right? How you go from here to here is the story we're going to tell today. It's the one that Steve and Londi have perfected and plan to do many more of, right? So let's talk about the property, okay? So the property was purchased for $80,000. This is high level. We're going to get into the details of it. The property had a renovation budget of $55,000, okay? It appraised when they were done, these two, the finished value of their appraisal was $250,000. And these folks, after everything was said and done, after hard money fees were paid, after DSCR loans was paid, after everything was paid, after all was paid, right? Everything was paid, they got a check for $20,000. And I forgot to tell you the best part of this check, because nobody really talks about the best part of this check, is it's tax-free. They don't have to pay any tax because no taxable event happened. They received a check for 20 grand that is now in their investment account, ready to make an investment in the next deal. So answer this question. How hard are you willing to work to make that 20 grand? Not only did they make the 20 grand, they also have the equity in the house that is called phantom equity that they have today that nobody is really counting as part of the story. But to me, that's part of the success story. All right. So let's dig in here. All right. Rio transformation. So the before and after images showcase how they started. They bought what do you call this house on the scale of junkie, 1 to 10?
1.
1. What do you call it?
Okay, so we got a 1 and a 2. We got 1 and a 2.
Yeah,
so
but you smell it.
Yes. The smell made it a 1 for Steve.
You know, yeah.
So this was a house that was at 2597, Val Phillips. This is in Milwaukee. This is them on the porch of it. This was a house that was an ugly house. This was a distressed asset. This was a house that they knew their vision come to life is that if we make renovations to it, if I put my blood, sweat, and tears into it, if I put my $55,000 into it, I'm going to get what I want out of the house. Now, we took the turd and we made it great, okay? So let's go back. Before. Well, after. Sorry. So here's the after picture of it. So here's some pictures, okay? We got the before, here's the ugly bathroom that was here, here's what Londi does, right? So Londi comes up with her vision for what the house is gonna look like, and she makes the bathroom look better, okay?
I do what the voices in her head tell me.
So Steve executes on the voices in Londi's head. Who's got voices in their head saying they're gonna do it? Okay, so look at this beautiful one before, after, okay? Beautiful, beautiful labor of love. Here was the before, after, before, and here's the after, okay? So kitchen. Now, this was one thing you were very proud of, right? You kind of spent a lot of time on the kitchen, I think, and I think it came out really nice.
Thank you.
And you were a little creative with I think this thing right here and then the color.
Yes.
So you get a lot of commentary. So how do you feel? And also this backsplash, by the way, I think this backsplash was awesome. So tell me a little bit, Londi, about how you got creative with making this kitchen your reality.
Just basically, like, I know that the kitchen's where everybody hang out at now. So I want a space that's inviting, something that stands out, something that look high end, because I think that kitchens and bathrooms sell.
Kitchens and bathrooms always sell, right? They sell to every demographic across all walks of life, everywhere in the United States. Kitchens and baths. So I think that's a great approach. Everyone see the hard work that went into this kitchen. I think we had a really good result here. And this was, I'm not so sure this one looked very good on the left. It wasn't very welcoming, although it seemed.
No, that was actually a pantry and a built-in hutch in there before.
Okay.
There's a chimney on the other side that you couldn't see. So we took that whole thing out and then made it all nice and wide open so that it actually flowed into the kitchen so that you could actually have conversation while you were working in the kitchen with guests and people that were around, just so it was nice and
And it
open.
looks so much more refreshing, right?
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
So if you look at the pictures, anyone that has seen it, what do we give Londi and Steve? 1 to 5 stars. If you got a 5, throw a 5 in there. If you got a 1, let's hear what we got. But I think they did a 5 job, in my opinion, of generating the value so that what are we really trying to accomplish here, right? All of the hard work comes down to one day, unfortunately, in the BRRRR strategy, right?
Yep.
It comes down to this one day where some human walks into the property named Mr. or Mrs. Appraiser and comes in for the day of reckoning, right? So when they walk into the property on Val Phillips, we are hoping for the opportunity that the appraiser's gonna do what? Give us the value we want.
Yep.
Correct.
Did we get the value we wanted?
We
Exceeded the value that we
We wanted. Now, from an underwriting standpoint, they exceeded our underwriting as well. So they got what they wanted, plus they would have been happy just pulling out all the money and having a new loan.
Yep.
Instead, we got $20,000. How hard are we going to work for that 20 grand? This is a labor of love, but it's also a passion of driving the success. So here's another great picture of it. Thank you. Another great picture of it, of the after. I'm being mindful of people's time. And so here's the proof, right? So here's the proof. The opinion of value, which you can see right here, came from right here, which is their appraiser. Cross Country Mortgage did their refinance for the property at 2957, 80,000, 55,000, 250 in value. That's a winner. Here it is. That's the appraisal. This is the appraisal from September 3rd, 2024.
And all of that was accomplished with no money out of our pocket.
No money out of their pockets. So they made 20 grand of tax-free dollars. They have no money out of their pockets. They're going to cash flow the property. They are going to cash flow this property and get infinite returns on investment with no money of theirs. Let's dig in, guys. Let's talk about that because that's really important. Sorry. Peter, thank you. Here's the proof, though. Here is the $20,100 on their closing statement. This came because Londi didn't want to email it to me, but she sent me this. But I want to just draw your attention to this, which got her that money, $20,000. Here's it blown up for you, $20,000. Estimated cash to close due to borrower. This is real life. This just happened. This is real life. Okay? If you're wondering how it happens, you can do it as well. Okay? So let's dig in. Does everyone understand what the BRRRR method is? Anybody not understand it? Okay, so the BRRRR method, if you really think about it from back before somebody dubbed it BRRRR, was really the value add proposition. It's buying a property, creating its value, leveraging your labor, whatever that is, driving rents, and then refinancing. Okay? So the strategy of value add creation or BRRRR method works really well and works really good with other people's money. 50% of our borrowers are refinancing out through the strategy because it gives them an opportunity to make improvements to a property and get the highest value. As I told you, I built up a $300 million portfolio doing this specific method. From 2003 to 2012, I started with zero and kept going where I was using other people's money all the way to the finish line. And when I finished the portfolio, and I had $0 in the deal, zero. I was 100% leveraged. Now, it was mindful, it was respectful, but it was a process to which was required to get us to where I needed to go. You can get there too. Let's dig into the BRRRR method. So wealth creation, the BRRRR strategy is an opportunity to create wealth. You can create not only wealth by creating the equity, right? We talked about the equity piece, but you also create the cash flow piece. That's an important part of it, right? And then the part that we really can't talk about is what is this going to do, right? I don't know what it's going to do, but it's going to be something. And then every mortgage payment you make, right? Every time your tenant pays you and you pay down your mortgage, you are creating additional equity. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, let's talk about it on the podcast. That to me is a huge opportunity. My tenants and your tenants pay your mortgage. We don't pay our mortgages on our investment properties. Think about it. We do not pay our mortgages. Our tenants pay our mortgages. And as a result of them paying their rent, they pay our mortgage principal down on the amortization. Once again, you do nothing, manage the asset, you're getting wealthy every single day. Okay. So cash out refinance. Cash out refinances allows you to take out the equity of the property, right? So that's the ultimate step in this BRRRR strategy or any of the value add. Do the cash out refinance. We do this every single time we build something or every time we do a development, whether it's a single family home on Val Phillips or it's an industrial building somewhere in the world. It doesn't change. The concept doesn't change. All right. So the first part of the BRRRR, does everyone know what the B is? Here it is, buy, right? So when we look to buy, buying a property right is where you make all your money. We agree with that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about how you value properties, Londi, because I think this is super important, right? So you're on Val Phillips. Val Phillips is an important street to you for your own nostalgic reason. Right. You went out to the one piece of junk property, one, and you said it was a two, and you said, I'm gonna buy this at a deep discount. So how did you get to the point where you could buy the property? How'd you find it? Other than living on the street?
I knew the neighbor and she put it up. I think we were out of town and she put it up for sale and it stayed on the market because you didn't do any repairs. You didn't do anything to it. So, I'm gonna buy it for a lot less than what you have it marketed for.
So the lady put the property on MLS. Yeah. Okay. This is a big opportunity for everyone. When the biggest opportunity to buy properties is on MLS. Okay, they're often people say, I can't buy on MLS. Well, let me tell you, what do people do when they put a property on MLS? There's one thing they're doing. They're raising their hand and saying, my property is for sale. I want to sell. That is a very unique opportunity because what we all do, all of the wholesalers, right? How many people are out there wholesaling? How many wholesalers we got in here? A bunch? Okay, the wholesalers are out there bird dogging, we're cold calling, we're dialing, we're pulling lists, we're doing everything else that everyone else is doing. Someone that's on MLS, you already know their motivation. Their motivation is high to sell a property, which is a huge opportunity. What they want to sell it for is where the opportunity comes. And so, Londi, do you remember, or Steve, do you remember what it was listed for?
95.
Yeah, 95,000.
Okay, what did you pay?
80.
80. So we got almost a 20% discount on a property listed on MLS. Think about that. So an opportunity to execute, and we knew the ARV was 250, so we paid 80 for something that's worth 250. We bought right. The value potential was here, and the cash flow is here on the first step which is the key to this, which is the buy. Does that make sense to everyone? I know there's a lot of content here. If you have any questions, drop those in the chat because we have a moderator here, Peter and Denver, who are helping us moderate. We'd love to ask some questions along the way. If you have any questions, if you don't understand something, there's no such thing as a silly question or a dumb question. Just ask it. Someone else is thinking it. So ask the question. We're going to get to it. So the next step is renovate, right? Buy, renovate, right? So we took the 1, right?
Yep.
And where did you think we finished? So if the scale is 1 to 10, we started here, and Londi thinks we started here, but we'll just say we're right here. Where did you finish the project? What was your level of happiness? Did we get to a 10? Did we get to a 9? Did we get to an 8?
Got to a 10.
I think we got to a 10.
We renovated this to a 10. We got everything we wanted out of the property, and that. So let's talk about it for a minute. When you were thinking of the value, right, of the renovation value, right, all of your money. All of your $55,000 you're putting into this property really comes back to you at the last day, right? The day of reckoning. What did you think the property was going to refinance out for or value out?
We were actually hoping just to be able to pay off
the debt, the 150.
pay off the debt for it.
180, 190 is what we were hoping for.
Okay, so we thought a 190 number. We came in 60,000 above. And my question to you is this. If we didn't get to a 10, which you said we got to, and that's a great result. But this is more of a question for some of the other investors, because I get this all the time. What if we would have done a lesser job? What if Londi wouldn't have put in her energy to make sure that the backsplash, right? Because that's one of those things you talk about a lot with me is, hey, I want to make sure this backsplash just pops and makes me look good, and that one space when I walk in looks good.
No, I'm trying, Modi.
But these are important things I think people want to understand. Excuse me, and so do I.
Attention to details.
Okay, so the attention to details. So let's talk about someone who absolutely has no attention to detail. Me. Okay? No, because this is important, right? Because there's others real estate investors out there that don't have that skill set, right? Because it's a true skill set. You guys have the attention to detail. Me, I'm like, yeah, it'll just get done and everything kind of happens. And I'm fortunate to have some people on my team that help me, but some people aren't. How do you figure out what's important? Like, how did you, because the renovation, you have to stay within budget, right? So we have to stay within budget. We have to have the contractor plan, Steve, and then we have to have the process in place. How do you stay within budget? How do you stay within budget and attention to detail?
By prioritizing what you do pay attention to. Even though you think you don't pay attention to details, you do. You do.
Okay, so
tell me what you do
then. So on Vel Phillips, when you paid attention to detail, give me a couple items that were important to you, right? So you say, we know kitchens and baths sell, but you went in there and you did a really nice job on the poles, the hardware. Was that attention to detail?
Absolutely.
Okay, now pick up that backsplash. You chose to, if you remember the picture, you chose to fill the backsplash all the way to the top.
Right.
So there's no gap, right? So we have no gap. We have no drywall under there.
Right.
Do you think that impacted the value?
Absolutely.
Okay, excuse me. So give me a few other tips.
So,
Let's talk to this audience right now. Give me a few tips. Give me a couple tips that people are going to say, hey, that's something that I can take away from this that I can do on my
I
own.
would say first and foremost is like when we go into it, we make it so it's a place where we would want to live.
Okay, so you guys would live in the condition property you are trying to emulate, okay?
When we walk away from it, it would be some place that we would want to stay. And a lot of it is because we end up staying there because of every place that we have is on the Airbnb.
Yeah.
So at any given point, the place that we're in right now, we might be homeless for the weekend and have to go to New York for the weekend. So
But like,
So that's why you guys travel. Yeah.
but like, I prefer to use like a stone countertop. Like that, I think that's important. That's
Countertop. So your options are quartz, your options are marble, your options are stone.
Right.
You pick stone and just walk us through that in your mind.
stone because like it's inviting. It looks high end. I mean, like Formica is cheap and brittle, and you can tell that right away. But stone, people get a sense like, oh, this is home. I can be here a while. I feel comfortable. This is updated. It's not cheap looking. Anything that looked rich, like the tile with the herringbone, that was attention to the detail, but it wasn't that expensive.
So herringbone tile is the tile just you saw in the one bathroom that is connected on an angled connection. It's called a herringbone. But if you don't know what that means, which I didn't until a period of time in my life, I would have said, what the hell is herringbone? But it gives that aesthetic.
It makes it three-dimensional.
It makes you feel like you're at home. It doesn't feel like a builder grade or a flip or anything. You can go here and like, oh my God, there's actual touches. I can feel like I'm at home here. Like,
Not just subway tile.
right, everything flows.
Yeah, and it's a place you would live.
Right.
So you're thinking about it with always a budget constraint, right? We still have to operate in a budget.
Right.
So where are you buying your tile from? Are you going out and finding deals? Are you finding Floor and Decor? Are you at Home Depot? Are you at Menards?
At Lowe's, because if you do that business with Lowe's or Home Depot, they'll give you discounts. They have.
So hold on. So they'll give you discounts. You just walk up there and you stand there and they give you a discount, or you have to ask for them?
You don't, first month don't get filled. You don't get what you ask for.
Okay.
So like, hey,
Into that.
right. So they do like, hey, I'm buying in bulk, I'm buying in value. We'll give you 10% off, 15% off, and that adds up.
100% off.
Yeah, and that adds
You're
up.
going to the Pro Desk at Home Depot, or you're going to one of your associates that you've built a relationship with and saying, excuse me, I want to buy this and I'd like a discount on it.
But we also spend a couple $100,000 there a year or two just because they're willing to work with us on.
So it's a give and take relationship,
Yep.
but you also are able to save. Listen, if you spent $300,000 on materials and you get 20% off of that,
Right.
that to me sounds like $60,000 of savings. So
We
it's
got
real
6
dollars.
projects going on at once. It's not that hard to do.
Okay, so great tip. Okay, let's move on to the next one because we got the renovate done. So rent, right? So rent changed. There was a pivotal time in the world, rent changed. And I think it happened when this company called Airbnb was created, right? Before Airbnb was truly a platform, rent was, would you like to rent my place for a period of 6 months, 12 months, 5 years?
Right.
Now things have changed and short-term rentals are STR, right? And then you got long-term rentals that we all know of. So rent is a different number. So let's talk a little bit about your rental strategy, because I know you do some long-term rentals, you also do some short-term rentals, and then you also have a network that approaches you to do other rentals.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about how you rent your properties to get the cash flow you're trying to get.
So we actually furnish all of our properties so we can rent them to short term. Rent them out short term. So we rent to insurance companies, we rent to construction companies, we rent for a market of people who are staying at extended stays. People would rather stay at a home than a hotel. So we furnish our homes to make them feel like home when you're working away.
So let's talk about that, because so furnishing a home scares me because it sounds like a lot of money.
It is.
So it is. It can be. So how do you make that a little more thrifty, right? So
Facebook Marketplace.
Everyone hear that?
secrets out. Don't steal my couch. I'm about to go buy. Facebook
Don't raise the
Marketplace.
value on the one that we are about to buy.
I don't buy Steve's either. But so let's talk about that. So FB Marketplace, you go to, and you're that's my house. You're buying. Tell me.
I'm buying nightstands. I do buy the mattresses new from Amazon because they're cheap and they're nice. I buy like the couches brand new from Amazon, because they're cheap and nice. But like nightstands, buffets, like the stuff in there, that's Facebook Marketplace.
All of this furniture that you bought.
Like those chairs was like $135 off of Amazon.
I can't see those pictures. Okay.
Okay.
So the picture that's up,
Yeah.
so $130 on Amazon. So to furnish a house, because you're going to rent it short-term rental, how much does it cost you to furnish this house?
15 grand.
No. Well, that particular house we took from Facebook Marketplace. That's like the most expensive thing is the beds. That's a couple grand, and then like the miscellaneous. Depending on how nice you want it, how home you want to fill it, and then how many bedrooms you have.
Okay. So bedrooms are account, but so on the short-term rental instead of the long-term rental, you're renting these all so you're getting how much for rent for the property on Val Phillips on an average? Just
average about $3,500 to $4,500 a month.
okay. So and if you were to rent it on a long-term basis for a lease,
$1,600.
okay. So pay attention, guys, because this is a really important part of this. Okay. So if you rented this traditionally to a traditional person, family, whomever, you'd get about $1,600. I'm part of this. Londi's averaging, Londi and Steve are averaging $4,000. So for their efforts, they're getting 2 to almost 2.5 times the rent. Follow me, guys. The same effort goes into it. They're getting 2 to 2.5 times the rent that you would get from a traditional rental. How many people are considering short-term rentals? How many people just want the long-term, no headache? I want a tenant in there and that's it. So you're giving up value proposition a huge number when you look at NOI and cap rate, but what an unbelievable opportunity for them to increase their generational wealth and cash flow by simply doing a little more effort. Okay, so we got the rent down. So we're renting short
It's a
term.
lot more effort and she puts it in.
Okay, so that's fair. That's a good point. So and Londi, let's talk about that because I think it's important because people probably have some questions on short-term rentals versus long-term rentals. How much more effort is it? How do you get there, right? So tell me the biggest obstacles to that part of this is what? Is it the communication?
It's the turnover. It's that like turning over. Like if you have, especially if you're doing like traditional Airbnb, you have people staying for the weekend, somebody come in right away, making sure you have your cleaners on deck or you have a cleaning strategy, making sure that you have smart lock codes so people can come in and come out with ease. Making sure that everything is comfortable and you can address any mistakes right away, like or any problems right away.
Being available.
Being available. I can tell you this. I think I've called Londi 100 times in my life, and I don't think she's ever not answered my call. So for those of you that don't answer your phone every single time, that's you over here and Londi's over here. Okay.
We're talking like 11, 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
She's never not answered the call. I'm just giving you my update on Londi. So, okay. So we got the buy, we got the renovation, we got the rent down. Okay. Let's dig into the next phase of this, right? The refinance. Okay. So this is one of the most important parts of the process because if you don't execute on this, the other three parts of the story really don't work, right? And so whether it's this property, which is an important one, we have a couple things to consider, right? So you use cross country, I think is the name of the people.
Yes.
How did you get past the one question everybody wants to know, but no one's asked it yet? Has anyone asked this question yet? Well, here's the question everyone should be asking. How did you get past the title of seasoning on owning the property to get the refinance happen?
DSCR loan.
So there's a DSCR product that Cross Country offered that has zero seasoning. That's the answer. It's a simple one. So most people say it's either 6 months or 12 months. There are products out there that you can refinance in that have zero seasoning conditions. That to me is huge. Okay, so let's talk about this. When you went to go refinance, how many properties have you refinanced with Cross Country?
That
was your first one. So
Actually, our son, he got his through.
So you've known the guy, first one you guys executed on collectively. So, and you knew the person, how?
You know the person.
You knew him.
Yep.
Okay, so you knew this guy.
Yep.
He's somewhere in Madison, it looks like.
Yep.
Okay, so, and you had a relationship with him to say, hey, here's what I'm looking to do. Did you talk to him before you bought the property, or did you talk to him once you owned it, or when did you start that engagement with him?
I started it about a month before we were done with the project.
So a
because
month
I
ahead of
wanted to
it.
be able to have all of my ducks in a row so that when I was done, it didn't take time out after that. But you also got to be careful with it too, because like when you start that with a bank, they want to send somebody out there to appraise it right away. And if you're not 100% done, like, you know, I didn't want to hold it up. So I kind of timed it just right so that when I would be finishing up with everything, he had all of our information. And then as soon as I gave him the call, we could just pull the trigger.
All right, so we're waiting for D-Day, which we talked about, right? Which is this appraisal day, which all lenders are going to require. Okay, so the question, as Steve said, is, well, I'm renovating, and I've seen this. I don't even know how many times, hundreds of times, where people forget to put in 100% of the effort right before the appraiser gets there. And so let's talk about
little things like the plastic on the window, the tiniest little things like the shoe molding around the edges. They consider that a not finished room, and something like that can knock your appraisal down so much. Electrical plates not being on, doorknobs, like just like little things that you wouldn't think that would affect that appraisal, they matter.
Yeah, and so Steve, when you say that, I think that's 100% right, because we see that happen so often where people are forgetting the attention to detail, right? The final attention to detail when they're coming through and they're saying, how do I want to refinance it? And then you walk in and all of the electrical plates are not put on, or the place isn't cleaned. I mean, for God help me, clean the damn place.
Exactly. Well, what really helps, like when using you for the hard money loan is the app that you guys have makes it so much easier to be able to complete projects, because before you can get that drawdown, you have your before picture and your after picture. And in order to get paid, and if you do your SAL right, your scope of work, once that is completed, then you can get your check from it. So as you go through and you finish your rooms, as long as you get, got that check for each room so that you can reimburse yourself for that money, your room is completed as you go. So you make it very easy with the app that you have.
And that's good. So what Steve's referencing, which is an important point, is that during the process when you're using hard money or our financing on that, we have what they call a scope of work, which is giving you the details. And then Steve is making sure when he's submitting that 100% of whatever he's asking for is completed. That includes the cleaning, the removing of the tape from the windows, the shoe molding, the electrical plates. All of the work in that one room is done so he can sign off on it and move to the next room or move to the next part of the process.
Yeah.
So all of that's really important. And I think when we talk about scope of work or when we talk about the refinance part, this part is the most overlooked part of the entire process. And I see it happen all the time. And for me, this is the most nerve-wracking part when I'm doing it myself. Right? When I'm out there refinancing for myself a building, I'm so nervous that I'm going to get an appraiser who's having a bad day, or an appraiser who doesn't like something, or an appraiser who didn't know Val Phillips, or an appraiser who is scared to walk into certain neighborhoods, or an appraiser who
Don't like green cabinets.
Doesn't like green cabinets.
and thought that Londi, he was crazy, or doesn't like gold pools. I'm worried about this every day. And when I tell the investor to be mindful of it, I'm standing there, and so let's go through this. The appraiser comes, he's supposed to be there at 10 a.m. Londi, I'm sure, is there at 9:45 waiting for him. The lights are already on in the property. Londi's already walked through this property. Londi and Steve have made sure the property's clean. They made sure that when they walk in, the appraiser says, "You guys did a great job." Isn't that a great feeling when you say, "Oh, okay, thank you, Mr. Appraiser. I hope you have a great day," versus, are you finishing this room? And is that window broken, going to get fixed? And is that molding going to get done? They ask all of these series of questions.
Because if there is something missing on that, just say like the ductwork, if you don't have like a piece of ductwork on, or there is a piece of fascia or something like that, and you're like, oh, my contractor's coming back tomorrow to finish it, he will actually stop the appraisal and they'll have to come back again.
That's right. And they don't like doing that, by the way.
They don't.
So that happens all the time.
Yep.
So any questions related to the refinance start of it? Okay, so now the next part of the DSCR, which I think is important, is that you have to manage how the PI TI is being calculated, right? Over the debt load, right? PI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, right? Everyone know what PI, TI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance are? These are all part of the DSCR requirements to make sure that you're going to cover whatever the DSCR coverage is, debt service coverage ratio. So whatever the ratio is, 1 to 1, 1.2 to 1, whatever that number is, you need to make sure you're qualifying. And you also need to understand what that is in terms of interest rate, because the interest, is an important piece of the equation. It's probably the largest. And so you have to make sure you're being mindful of how that all works. And you need to ask those questions in advance so you can create your own DSCR coverage ratio formula and calculation. Okay, now you had a lender relationship, a guy in Madison. Give him a 1 to 5. How did he do?
3.
So the relationship's being built. How could he have done better for you guys?
He could have been a better problem solver.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
so he
like-
wasn't problem solving at all along the way.
Some people are like really good at their job, and they look for solutions, I guess. And like he saw problems and made us kind of figure out. Or I'm sorry, I said us.
He made Londi figure him out.
Figure out.
So let's talk about that. So most people in this world are problem creators, not solvers.
Yep.
Is that a true?
Yeah.
So I find Londi to be a solver. I find her to be one that's out there. She's going to be the bull through the china shop, making sure she gets what she wants at the end of the day. And that's important, though, because if you're not your number one advocate, if you're not advocating for yourself, nothing's happened.
You don't see obstacles.
Nothing's happening, right? And Lonnie doesn't see obstacles along the way. She's going to just figure out how to get to where she wants to go. So very important in terms of the refinance piece of it goes. Yeah, so the question is, how do you establish a relationship if you don't already have one? So this is a really good question because it sounds so basic and yet it's so important to understand. So part of my answer to your question is when I started in the real estate industry in 2003, my job was to meet every lender because I knew at some point I was going to need them to do something for me. So what I did is I called everybody, introduced myself, and asked them to go for lunch. Everybody wants to go for lunch. So if you go out and make a relationship, when you go to lunch, you end up in a scenario where they become someone you know. Oh, hey, thanks for following up. Thanks for having lunch with me. Send them a follow-up email or a card if it was back when I started and we had cards and the postal service, snail mail was around. The other way to do it is to ask questions. Ask, can you introduce me? So here's a good take. Londi, could you introduce me to the guy from Cross Country Mortgage in Madison so he could do a DSCR for me?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And then Londi makes an email introduction or a text introduction that says, hey, Mr. Cross Country Mortgage guy, I'd like to introduce you to Scott who's looking to do a loan. And then it's upon you to take that relationship to the next level. Introduce yourself. Tell them what you do. Tell them who you are. Make sure that you are an advocate for yourself, and then you can create your own relationship. That happens for title companies. That happens for insurance agents. Because how many times have we tried to close on a property the day before and we don't have insurance coverage and we have to get it? Right. 1,000. But those are relationships that we're building. And every day, the network. Every day we're building that network. And Steve and Londi are working hard to do that every single day.
Lunch.
Well, Londi and I have been out to lunch a few times now, but Londi, we've done that. And Londi was, when we were getting started, Londi was not going to take no that I was not going to go meet with her and have lunch with her. She just was very adamant that it was happening, and it ended up happening. And all of a sudden, Londi's in my life. And it was a great introduction. So I hope that answers your question. So step 5, the R, the repeat, right? So guys, how are we repeating this, right? So what do you guys spend your days doing? You've got how many projects working right now?
Like 4 or 5?
Okay, so we got 4 or 5 working. So I'm assuming that you're not looking for any new projects right now. You're at home sleeping. You're always looking for projects.
There's always opportunities.
Okay, so walk me through what your days look like, because people ask this question all the time. If I'm working on 4 projects, I'm too busy, or how did you even get the 4 projects? So where are you sourcing? How are you doing? What does your day do?
We started, so people know, like, okay, well, they buy houses, they fix up houses. We post stuff on Facebook all the time about before and after, so people reach out to us. Hey, my grandma is moving somewhere and she doesn't want this house anymore. We need to get rid of it. Do you want it? Can I just get rid of it right away? Or building relationships with wholesalers that, like, hey, I know that you would want this, or I know that this is something would cross your mind.
So wholesalers is one option, right? Mm-hmm. So you can buy houses from wholesalers. That's a thumbs up, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a positive. You post on Facebook. Mm-hmm. So
before and afters.
Yeah, so let's talk about that because I think it's an interesting conversation. You post your before and afters and you say, look what we've accomplished.
Yeah.
You aren't saying show us your deals or anything. You're just saying, look what we've done. Mm-hmm. And from that, people are calling you. Yeah. Okay, so that's an opportunity. Okay, give me a few others.
I mean,
so let's go back to Facebook because there was an interesting deal that you bought, I think, well, there was an email that you sent one of the properties in Wauwatosa you bought. Yeah. You got from an email. Yeah. So how did that, was that a wholesaler?
Yeah, it was a wholesaler.
How did you get on that wholesaler's email list?
I was looking at, he had a property that I was looking at before that I didn't get, but he kept me on his email list. And then I saw it on Facebook. I'm like, this is like a really nice house.
So you saw it on Facebook or you saw it on?
I saw it on Facebook first and I realized it was a wholesaler I already worked with.
Okay, so we saw it here. Hello. Well, that didn't work. So we saw it here and we were part of an email list and we got another opportunity. Right. How many people have bought a property on Facebook? Can we get a show of hands? I have. I just bought one, by the way. I did in Shorewood, Wisconsin.
Facebook Marketplace?
No, this wasn't on Marketplace. This was just a post from someone in my network. Anybody else buy them on Facebook? How many wholesalers in the room are posting on Facebook? We got some? Okay, so guys, if you're not in the game, get in the game. Right. Getting on a Facebook group is free.
It is.
Costs you nothing. You just click interested. But when the other thing I'm interested about, and this is going to be, we're going to jump off this in 2 minutes because we're going to jump to our podcast, but I have always marveled at the silly comments people post to people's postings on Facebook. God. It's like you're not even trying. So you have no chance, and Londi has all the chance because she's going to respond with prompt and direct and meaningful conversation. You're writing some other crazy stuff that no one even asked you to write. How does that happen? I don't know.
It's how you spend your time. Like,
right.
Do you want to spend your time complaining and worry about different problems, or do you want to spend your time solving problems and getting ahead?
And that is the truth, right? So other than these three, right? So we want to be able to scale. We're talking to wholesalers. We're on Facebook. We're looking at email lists. I'm assuming you're doing that once a month?
No, every day. Every day.
Yes. Every day. So
you're not just once either.
Yeah.
When you sit down for lunch, when you're at breakfast, when you're in the afternoon, when you're walking, always constantly looking.
Tell us about your day. So if I gave you 30 seconds to tell us about your day.
Okay, today I went to go look at a house that was on Palmer Street. Okay. Because it was a duplex. It was nice, and the ROI is really nice. So, and it was already done and less repair. So I'm like, okay, we could do this and we could make this much money, and this is going to be nice. And then I came. Then I met with somebody. No, I didn't even go to Tulsa. I did go to Tulsa, but I went to lunch with somebody I was networking with that is interested in like branding and expanding, and that's what she specialized in. So I had last night show, and I had a meeting with her. Then I went to Tulsa to check out with everybody else, and then I came here.
Okay. This morning has already been. We've looked at a property. We've already done a little bit of networking. Now we're here, and then we're going to go do something this afternoon, focus on real estate. So this is a full-time job that nobody is driving you to do, right? No. You don't have a boss.
No.
You guys don't have a boss collectively. You guys kind of do your own times.
Right.
But you guys are always, when you sit down for lunch can also be a lunch meeting where I'm on my phone scrolling and you're scrolling and we're having a sandwich and we're figuring out the day. Okay. So scalability, reinvestment, by the way. When you pulled out that 20 grand, when you have a refinance like that, what is your mindset with that money? Is your mindset to go buy a car or buy some stupid stuff?
No.
What is it?
What's
the next deal?
Yep.
How long is that going to run for? Because in your mind, at some point, you're like, okay, and I know you guys enjoy life. I've seen you guys on vacation and you take care of your kids and you're running around and you're doing some fun stuff, but you're reinvesting 90% of your money back into the deals?
Right. No, yeah. I don't like expensive. My ears not even pierced. I don't wear jewelry. Like, I don't do jewelry. I don't do like fancy shoes or fancy cars. But the scaling thing that's the attractive. Growing from nothing.
Taking the money and scaling is attractive to you.
The passive income that comes in off of it.
Like the first bank for my childhood house, I bought it for $60,000. We got it priced for $300,000 when rates dropped. That's how we started. Like, okay,
I'm like,
oh, you could. I didn't even know I could do it. I called the bank. I'm like, well, this is a house off market. Can I use the money that I pull out to buy the house? It's for you. I'm like, hey, what? This is a thing? Yeah.
And the money that we pulled out was tax free.
Yeah, and it's tax free. So the other thing that probably sticks in Steve's head all the time is, hey, I could be on the road driving truck, which I'm gonna have to drive 700 miles to make what this person's gonna pay me tonight to stay in my house. And I get 100% cash flow.
Yeah.
Well, that changes quick, right?
Yeah.
It's like, holy shit, I'm going to be driving next to every dumb driver in America, or I'm going to be sitting at home collecting a nice check.
Right. So like,
okay.
Like the Airbnb thing, like, oh, somebody wants to pay me $8 grand to stay in my house. Here you go.
Yeah, $8 that's a good thing, right? No problem.
That's phenomenal.
Let's talk about that Airbnb success story because that's really, really awesome. We're going to jump over to that in a few minutes. So OPM. Understand the power of other people's money. Other people's money is a way to do it. You can do it structured through a hard money lender or a traditional lender. You can call grandma or grandpa, brother, sister, uncle, aunt. It doesn't matter. OPM gives you the opportunity for fast growth. Hard money gives you the fast growth. You can buy a property. We just got a loan application that's closing on Friday. We got one today. It's going to close Friday, 3 days from now. How the hell is that possible? We can move miracles. Other people's money can move miracles from you. I can promise you PNC and BMO and all the other banks can't figure it out. We can. The other thing to consider as you're thinking about this is as you expand, if you do 4, 5, 6 of these a month, right?
Mhm.
Your income in 1 year is going to not be 2 times. It's going to be 10 times what you are this year. And next year, if you do it, it's going to be 10 times again. And 10 times 10 times 10 is a lot more than 1 + 1 + 1. And as we think about that scaling proposition, you can scale and you can get to the finish line, which is super powerful. Say that one more time. So we're going to jump off here. We got about 5 minutes. If anybody has any other questions, I strongly encourage you to join us on our live podcast. We're getting there next. This is going to be an informative back and forth. It's going to be an awesome podcast. It's going to be super fun. I encourage you to ask your questions here. If you have any questions, we're going to get to them. If we don't, we'll get to them on the podcast. It's going to be super fun. It'll be worth your time, and feel free to jump in. Scaling BRRRR with hard money. It's speed to execution is what happens. As you can consider, nobody likes at the end of the day saying, oh, I had to pay these fees. But at the end of the day, nobody says that when they successfully have a great outcome. Right. What they say is, I want to do 10 more. Okay. If you could do 2597 10 more times, what would you do?
10 more times.
10 more times. There's nobody that would say no to that. So as we look at scaling, as we look at speed to execution, as we look at volume, and then the ultimate is we look at cash flow, right? If you start making $1,000 a month, and in 1 year you make $10,000 a month, and in 1 year after that you're making $100,000 a month, does it matter? The answer is, of course not. It doesn't matter. This is how people scale their business, how Steve and Londi are going to continue to scale their business and grow their cash flow. It's so simple. It sounds so complicated. It's so simple. Please understand, it's so simple. They just executed on it. What was the total time from start to finish?
Like 3 months.
3 months.
3 months. So
Of really long days.
3 months of really long days. No one remembers those days, right?
I do.
Okay, Steve remembers those days. Okay.
But I guess
Yep.
my biggest thing is like coming in with excuses of not to start. Like
So how many people have we said have not started a deal yet? How many folks are in the room have 0? We got a handful of those. Londi has a statement for you, because I don't know what you were going to say. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're right. You're gonna start. Like there's no like the rates are too high. The rates are always gonna be too high. The price is too high. They're not gonna go down. Like there's always an excuse to not start. You just gotta start.
That's going back to finding solutions instead of problems.
So you just got to start.
You have to start.
Because when I got started, I go back to the first day I bought a property, and I actually remember my first rental was at 4577 North 37th Street. It was a duplex I bought for $25,000. And it was a daughter and a mother and a daughter, and they were paying $600 each aside, which is now probably $2,400 total for the house or something crazy like that. And I just was like, oh my God, I owned my first rental, and my mortgage was $624 a month, and I was bringing in $1,200, and I'm like, this is really great. I'm making $500. I'm not even doing anything right now, and I just started. And that pivotal moment for me in my head when I had the $500 positive, $500 positive per month in my pocket, I was like, now if I multiply that by 100, I'm like, I can do this math. I want to go there, and that's where I went. So I started with nothing. You started with
look, my childhood home. It was $488 a month with PMI taxes and everything, with a whole $1,500 down because it was a cheap house, and I was renting out the lower unit for $750 a month. So I'm like, yeah, I get to live for free.
So you did that out of necessity at the time, right? You thought this was a great investment opportunity. You also were living pretty cheap.
I was living I lived just since I was 13 years old.
Wow.
And it was again, it was our childhood home.
Isn't that amazing? Great story.
I would say a tip though, like before you even go to start though, is get your team together.
Yep. And get your team together, right? Because if Londi didn't have a Steve, Steve wouldn't need a Londi, and vice versa to make the symphony work.
Absolutely.
I used to have my own crew, and they were with me for 15 years. We did property after property after property, and I never called them and told them what to do.
They already did it.
Because it was the team.
They just knew. They knew what tile to put in, or what floors to finish, or what bathrooms I was putting in. So that's the way it went. A little bit about our loan terms. We can close in 7 to 10 days. We finance up to 65% of the ARV with as little as 10% down. In this case scenario, Londi used a collateral property. Londi and Steve did, so they had $0 out of pocket to do this. We offer a 6-month term. They did it in 3 months. Our interest is 15%, so it's simple interest. So for the 3 months, they paid 4.5% interest. Think about that. Everyone says rates are high. Yes, they are. They're higher than normal, but we paid 4.5% interest because we executed on a successful strategy in 3 months. Urgency reduces cost. Think about it. A little bit about the Hard Money Co. High interest rate, short-term loans. We do all of our in-house underwriting. We have on-site origination, and we look for partnerships like Londi and Steve to work with. If you're interested, we would like to talk to you. We're going to pivot a little bit about our process, which we'll talk about a little bit on the podcast. So I hope everyone can join us. Do we have any questions we want to carry over? So we're going to take a few questions right now, then we're going to take the rest of the questions that are coming in right now onto the podcast. By the way, if you're looking to find me on Instagram, it's @HardMoneyScott. The question is, if you're just getting started, would you start with a lighter rehab house or would you start with a complete gut remodel?
I guess it all depends on what you want to do with it. Are you buying it to keep it and hold it for passive income, or are you buying it to flip it? Like
Yeah, so let's take, because that's a very good question, right? So what's your exit strategy?
Yeah.
So let's take the strategy of we're going to flip it. We want to flip it. We've never done it before.
Yeah.
So this is a new person.
Go lighter.
And we're going lighter. So we're going to find a cosmetic house that might need carpet and paint, that might need some mechanics, but we don't want to be moving walls and we don't want to be pulling tons of permits because that becomes a mess if we don't know what we're doing.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about if we're going to do a burst strategy, right? So we're going to rent it out. We want to update it. Where are you?
Make it tenant friendly. You make it a place where people want to live.
So we're going to make that tenant friendly. On the rehab side of things,
You'd have
less is more for the first one, do you think?
Yeah, unless if you went in there, because if it's going to be your first one and you have to do that much work, that's where you're going to want to have an electrician already, and a plumber, and a painter, a drywaller. You're going to want to have a contractor or all of your contractors lined up, because if you don't and you take out that hard money loan, because remember, time is of the essence on that.
Right.
And then once you get that house and then you have to start looking, then you got to get on people's schedules. You have to go through the weeding process of,
Losing a
interacting-
contract. He's going to show up.
If anybody's ever done this, not every contractor shows up.
Right.
Hell, this is a worldwide pandemic.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. So the answer to the question is it depends, right? Like everything depends. It depends on also their risk profile, and also do they have a network of contractors that are going to show up? Because sometimes people go in and do these work on their own where they're doing their own painting. You can do paint and carpet on your own. You can get a carpenter and you can paint on your own. So
That's where your sweat equity comes.
sweat equity is a great opportunity. So the question is there a rule of thumb on the budget, the purchase and the renovation budget to the end value, right? And so the answer is, of course, and you have to kind of think about the math in an interesting way. I just want to get to a screen. Okay, well, I can't get to a screen, but we're going to start here. So if you think about it, the DSCR loan, the exit, right? So we're starting at the end, right? We're starting at how are we going to exit this loan? And they give you, there's a coverage ratio. So you have either a 1-to-1 or a 1.2-to-1, right? So that's one of the calculations you need to figure out. And then they go, and up to, right? And then it's either 70 to 80%. It depends on the time, the day, the year, the markets. So if you did that backwards, if you're at 80% value and you want to pull out cash, then you have to do the math, right? If you have a $100,000 loan or a $100,000 ARV or what they're going to replace it for, and you can get 70% of that, now you're at 70,000. And if you have a repair budget of 20,000, now you're at 50,000. Okay? So you need to buy for no more than $50,000. You have to spend no more than $20,000, which will get you a 100% levered loan. That is powerful. Sorry for my math. Yeah. Okay, guys. I'm super excited and thankful for your time. Thank you for your thanks for Shalonda and Steve for coming in. We're gonna walk right into a live podcast right now. Bring your questions. It's gonna be fun. The link's up in the chat. We're going live right now in 5 or 10 minutes. Please join us. Bring your questions, guys. If you can't figure out how to put the energy into making $10 to $20 to $30,000 times 10, join the podcast. Thank you guys for being here. My name is Scott Lurie with the Hard Money Co. and always appreciative of your time.